What if I told you that you're not real, not like you think you are, not like you see yourself in the mirror? Because what you project isn't what you are, but what you believe others want to see. You live trapped in a theater, playing a role you didn't write. Every forced smile, every censored word, every cautious step you take, all of that is a lie you swallowed to fit in. But fit in where? With whom? Have you thought about it? Who's watching you exactly? Who judges you? Who keeps that light burning on your back every time you enter a room? Because there's something you haven't understood. There's no one there. No one is watching. No one stays with you after the act. The audience you fear so much doesn't exist. You've lived believing you are the center of every gaze, when in reality, the eyes you feel aren't strangers. They're your own. They're your mind, playing hide and seek behind fear. That anxiety tightening your chest doesn't come from others' judgment. It comes from you. From that voice that never shuts up. The one that says, do it right. Don't screw up. They'll laugh at you. But that voice isn't yours. It's an echo. The echo of a society obsessed with image, approval, with being seen. You've been trained to feel ashamed of yourself, to mold yourself to others' tastes. And that has broken you inside. Have you ever wondered why sometimes you feel like you don't even fit with yourself? Because you've distorted yourself so much, trying to meet others' expectations, that you've lost yourself. And the worst part is that the illusion of constant surveillance keeps you from breathing. Jean-Paul Sartre called it the look of the other. But don't get it wrong. He wasn't referring to something innocent. That gaze can be a condemnation, a silent poison hiding in the smallest gestures, in the fear of raising your hand, in the shame of making a mistake, in the voice trembling when you feel everyone's watching you. But here's the truth no one wants to tell you. Other people's judgment is a shadow, and you've been running from it for years as if it had teeth. What if I told you that no one is watching you? That no one thinks about you as much as you believe? That the world keeps turning even if you stumble, fall, or scream? Does that terrify you or relieve you? Because the most brutal paradox is this: we live as if we were the center of the universe. Yet at the same time, we're slaves to an attention that doesn't exist. You think others are counting your mistakes, filing your faults, evaluating your appearance. But it's not true. People don't have time for that. They're too busy fearing exactly the same thing you do, being watched. Do you get it? Everyone is trapped in their own mental show. And you're just a bit player in their fears. So why do you keep acting? Why do you keep disguising yourself as something you're not? Why, every day, do you keep editing who you are as if your life depended on applause? Who made you believe you had to be liked? Who told you there was a court waiting to sentence every one of your moves? There's something perverse in how we've been programmed. Since we were little, we were taught that being accepted is surviving, that rejection hurts more than a wound, that ridicule kills. And so you adapted. You became a reflection, a caricature. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You stayed silent when you wanted to burn. You made yourself small so as not to bother. But tell me, how much more are you going to shrink yourself to fit others' expectations? It's not just about self-esteem, not just about confidence. It's about existence. You're living a fake life, a life designed by the looks you think surround you. But if you could see the world as it really is, you'd see a disturbing truth. No one is watching you. No one follows you. No one judges you. No one remembers your mistakes, because everyone is trapped in theirs. And when you understand that, you'll feel dizzy. The dizziness of freedom. Because if no one's watching you, then no one can define you. And if no one defines you, then you are the only one responsible for your existence. That thought scares. It's terrifying, because without an external judge, you're left alone with your decisions. No excuses, no validations, no likes, no applause. Just you and your reflection. And that's where the real nightmare, or the real freedom, begins. Because if you take off the mask, who are you? If there's no audience to impress, why do you do what you do? Do you follow your calling or your need for applause? Do you dress that way out of taste or fear of not fitting in? Do you post out of passion or desperation? And if you stopped existing in others' minds, would you still exist for yourself? Answer that with brutal honesty. Because this video isn't here to make you feel better. It's here to shake you, to tear off your blindfolds, to tell you what no one dares. No one pays as much attention to you as you think. You're not the star of the world, and that, though it hurts, is a blessing. Imagine what you could do if you stopped living to be watched. Imagine what you would be capable of building if you let go of that burden. If you abandoned the theater, if you destroyed the stage. What if, for the first time, you stopped acting and started living? That's where the real challenge begins. Because authenticity isn't comfortable. It's not pretty. It's not always accepted, but it's yours. It belongs to you. And when you live from there, from the brutal truth of who you are, then the look of the other no longer controls you. It passes through you, but it doesn't touch you. Sartre was right. We live under the weight of an illusion. We believe others are mirrors when, in reality, they're ghosts. Ghosts that you yourself created. And it's time to exorcise them. Welcome to the abyss of your freedom. Do you dare to look inside? Do you dare to look inside? Good. Because what comes next isn't easier. It's deeper. Because if you've already understood that no one watches you as much as you think, now you have to face the other side of the coin. And this part is much darker. If you've lived to be seen, you've also lived under a more silent sentence. The need to control what others think of you. And here's where the real trap begins. Because it's not enough to feel watched. No, you also try to manipulate that gaze. You try to shape every gesture, every word, every reaction to build an image that others accept, admire, or at least don't reject. You've created a version of yourself that doesn't exist. One you've perfected with years of practice, as if you were an artist of emotional camouflage. And do you know the worst part? You do it so well that sometimes even you believe it. But it's not real. It never has been. You've developed an obsession with controlling perception. You don't just want to be liked, you want to make sure you don't bother anyone. Not to stand out too much, but also not to go unnoticed. To seem interesting, but not threatening. Confident, but not arrogant. Intelligent, but approachable. It's an impossible, absurd balance that consumes you. And this internal tension has a name: alienation from oneself. Because the more you try to control how you're seen, the further you get from who you really are. You end up being a projection, a polished hologram for collective approval. And that's where you break. Because sooner or later, that hologram cracks. You can't hold it forever. The emotional wear, the anxiety, the exhaustion, it all builds up. And one day you wake up and don't know who you are without an audience. It's brutal, but real. You've lived so long, depending on an imaginary gaze, that when you're alone, you don't know how to exist. And that hurts more than rejection. Because rejection at least confronts you, forces you to see yourself. But superficial acceptance only feeds the character. And while the character grows stronger, you weaken. Your essence sinks. It dissolves. Here comes another idea from Sartre. Less popular, but just as powerful. Bad faith. And no, it's not a pretty phrase. It means living in self-deception, knowing deep down that you're lying to yourself, but doing it anyway for comfort. Because facing the truth is unbearable. Bad faith is pretending you don't know what you know. It's staying in a job you hate because you believe you have no choice. It's maintaining an empty relationship because it's best for everyone. It's acting like it doesn't hurt when you carry it dragging on your back. And worst of all, you don't need anyone else to lie to you, because you already do it yourself. So, if no one is really watching you, and you keep living for an image, what do you have left? What part of you is authentic? What decisions have you made without being conditioned by the gaze of the other, by expectation, by judgment? Do you know what you really want? Or are you just chasing what you think will make you acceptable? And here's the detail that changes everything. When you live to be seen, your life stops being yours. You lose the ability to decide from the root, because even your most intimate choices are contaminated by a silent but devastating question. What will they think of me if I do this? That phrase is a slow poison. Invisible, but it destroys. It shatters your authenticity. It distorts your relationships. It turns you into a spectator of your own life. And that's when something much more destructive than anxiety appears. The guilt of not having been yourself. The guilt of betraying your instinct. Of having silenced your voice. Of having said yes when you wanted to scream no. Of having censored yourself over and over until your thoughts stopped being yours. That guilt doesn't come all at once. It arrives silently, in the form of emptiness, in that feeling of disconnection, in that fatigue that rest doesn't cure, in that sadness you don't understand because everything's fine, but inside you know it's not. And now tell me, how much of your suffering really comes from you? And how much comes from that constant effort to maintain an image? How many times have you looked in the mirror and not recognized the one staring back? Because that's what happens when you live more to be perceived than to be felt. when you become a polished surface, but hollow. But there's something even worse. When you become what others expect, you attract people who don't want who you are, but who you pretend to be. And that's the deepest hell. Surrounding yourself with people who don't know you because you never gave them the chance. You gave them an edited, filtered, rehearsed version. And now, when you want to take off the mask, it's too late. Because you're not in that picture, and they don't recognize you without emotional makeup. So the question is this: how long are you going to keep acting out a life that isn't yours? When will you stop asking permission to exist? Because if the gaze of the other is a prison, you are the jailer, and only you have the key. But watch out. Don't get confused. It's not about ignoring everyone. It's not about living in blind, arrogant individualism. It's about discerning, learning to distinguish between the opinion that builds you up and the one that destroys you, filtering what you allow to pass through you. Because your mind isn't a garbage bin. It doesn't have to accept every judgment, not even your own, when it comes from the sick self-demand you inherited from a world that taught you you're only valuable if you please. And here's where real freedom comes in. Not the kind they sell you in self-help phrases. Not the illusory freedom of do whatever you want. No, freedom, the kind that hurts, that's uncomfortable, is the one that makes you responsible for yourself. The one that has no one else to blame. No parents, no society, no rules. Only you, your decisions, your path. Because when you realize you're not being watched, you have no excuse. You can't say anymore, "I didn't dare because they judged me." You can't justify your cowardice with the eyes of others. The silence exposes you. The absence of judgment leaves you naked, and that's where dizziness begins. The dizziness of being free, of being you. So the next step isn't to free yourself from judgment. It's much harder. It's to rebuild yourself without it. It's to ask yourself, with every action, every word, every choice, am I doing this for me or for the shadow of someone else? And if the answer isn't you, don't do it. I repeat, the gaze of the other doesn't imprison you. You decided to live there, but you can also leave, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, even if you have to break everything. You were to start over. And yes, that's scary. Because when you live without the gaze of the other, you face the greatest fear of all. Looking at yourself without filters. Are you ready for that? Because that, the dirt, and nothing else is the beginning of your freedom. And freedom isn't always pretty, but it's always real. Are you ready for that? To look at yourself without filters? Because that's the point of no return. That's the moment when you can no longer lie to yourself. You can't go back. You can't keep blaming the external noise when you discover the loudest noise was inside. And this is where most people back down. This is where many prefer to return to the comfortable prison of expectations, where at least they knew what role to play. But you don't. You've come this far. And that means you've already seen the crack. And once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. It's now, this moment, this very second, in which you can choose. Because each of us has a door in front of us. The door of authenticity, of the raw, of the uncomfortable, but also of the real. And that door doesn't open with someone else's keys. It opens with one thing only: the courage to see yourself without applause. Have you ever wondered why you're so attracted to people who are themselves without asking permission? Why you envy those who seem unafraid of judgment? Because deep down, you sense that's the only way to truly live. Not to imitate them, not to resemble them, but to find that in yourself. And it's not outside. It never was. It's behind all the layers you put on to survive. And when you take off those layers, when you decide to stop being the reflection of the world and become your own flame, something changes. You no longer walk looking for gazes. You walk creating a path. You no longer speak to please. You speak to say what matters. You no longer live to be accepted. You live to be you, with everything that implies, with the rejection that may come, with the uncomfortable silence, with inevitable losses. Because yes, you will lose things, people, environments, versions of yourself that no longer fit. But what you gain is incomparable. You gain presence. You gain direction. You gain that internal feeling no one can give you. The certainty that you are living your life, not the one expected of you. And when you achieve that, judgment stops hurting. Not because it disappears, but because you no longer need it to validate your existence. Because now you suffice. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. And here's what no one has told you. External judgment never disappears. There will always be someone who has an opinion. There will always be voices trying to label you. But when you've already named yourself, those labels don't stick. They slide off because you already know who you are. And that is non-negotiable. So now I propose something, a brutal experiment. Look at your day today. Every decision you made. How many were yours? How many were born from the desire to please, to fit in, to not bother? Do that analysis every day, and little by little, start recovering your sovereignty, your space, your voice. Let every step you take be a declaration. I am alive. I am here. Not as they imagined me, not as they wanted me, but as I am. Because freedom is not achieved in a shout. It's achieved in an inner whisper that tells you now, yes, now I am being me. And that is revolutionary. In a world full of masks, being authentic is the greatest act of rebellion. If you've come this far, it's no accident. Something inside you is already breaking. Or maybe it already broke. And now you're picking up the pieces to build yourself again. But your way. If you feel that, write it in the comments. Tell me, I have broken the mirror. Because that mirror that gave you a false image no longer has power over you. Break it and feel free in the fragments. And if this video has resonated with you, If it has shaken you, if it has made you look at yourself like never before, subscribe. Because we're not here to give pretty answers. We're here to unsettle, to awaken, to destroy the lie so you can build yourself from the truth. Turn on the notification bell and leave me a comment about how this truth felt. Don't hold back. See you in the next video, or maybe not. Maybe you'd rather close your eyes and keep dreaming that judgment is real. But if you choose to come back, I'll be here at the border between what you pretend to be and what you can become. Until then, let the world forget you. And remember who you were before you needed to be seen. Goodbye, spectator. Or better yet, welcome. And if you want a guide as you step past the illusion of the gaze, subscribe to Psyche Nomad and keep choosing authenticity over approval.